you glorious gamers out there. Welcome to the PlayersToo podcast, the video game podcast for gamers like you, by gamers like you. You can find PlayersToo on all the social media. That's Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, the lot. You can also find our written content over at PlayersToo.com. That's PLAYERSTOO.com. And if you could take 5 seconds to give us 5 stars wherever you get your podcasts, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Podchaser, wherever, it all helps us out. If you could review us, rate us, it does a huge amount for the exposure of the show, and thank you so much to anyone that's already done that for us. You are an absolute legend to us. Alright, and on with the show. My name is Mark Henderson. With me, as always, still in his cupboard, it's Mr. Lewis Gamley. How's it going, Lewis?
It's going pretty well, Mark. Yeah, not too bad at all. Still here in my cupboard, as you say. Still on furlough. Might be my last week of furlough. I'm waiting for a phone call tomorrow to find out if I have to go back to work next week or if I have another 3 weeks off. So I know what I'm hoping for. Some more time for video games, so to speak.
Aye, lucky for some, dearie me. Dearie me.
How are you getting on?
Yep, still working, balls to the wall every single day. Basically hasn't changed for me. I am insanely jealous. So there we go. Okay, Lewis, what have you been playing, man?
So yeah, I've basically just been playing Ori and the Will of the Wisps. I've now rolled credits on that game. I really, really enjoyed it. If you listened to everything I had to say last week about my kind of first thoughts on the game, it only got better from there. You know, everything just felt tight. It felt like the game really gently but coherently takes you through everything that it wants you to learn in turn, and you then understand how to use different skills in different places to, you know, solve the various little puzzles and get through to the new areas. So I just really, really enjoyed this game from start to finish. As I mentioned last week, the story, it's fairly nothing. Like, it's nothing to write home about at all, but it pays off in a sort of a nice enough way. Some really great boss battles towards the end of the game. The introduction of some really fun new mechanics and new skills that then allow you to access different areas back across the game mean that I might well go back and do some of the post-game tidy-up, because there's a few little side quests and collectibles and things like that I think will actually be like fun enough to want to get them. That's where I'm at with that. I cannot recommend this enough. I'm sure you're going to pick it up eventually, Mark.
Oh, definitely I'll get around to it. I mean, the last one was a spectacular game in a lot of ways. It did have niggling little issues here, there and everywhere, but actually from what you've already said, it sounds as if a lot of them have been addressed. I definitely want to play it. Despite being stuck at home quite a lot, I am struggling somehow to find time to play video games now for some reason.
Time's a strange one.
I found way more time before I started working at home, but there we go.
What have you been filling that time with?
Well, I finally got my hands on Final Fantasy VII Remake, Lewis.
Nice one.
Hurrah, went the crowds.
Yeah, about time, yeah.
And Resident Evil 3 Remake as well, which I've given to you, which you're going to start after Ori and the Will of the Wisps.
Yeah, so that should be my game for next week, pretty much, yeah.
Unfortunately, I've not had as much time to play Final Fantasy VII as I thought I would have, which is unfortunate. So I've probably only about maybe 3 or 4 hours into it, when I really kind of wanted to be more like 10 or 15.
I half expected you'd be finished by now, to be honest.
I unfortunately cannot seem to play at that pace now for some reason. What I will say is, the more and more I am playing with this battle system, the more and more I am absolutely loving it. It is incredibly good. It really marries together fast-paced hack and slash, Devil May Cry / Bayonetta-esque action with menu-driven combat as well. And you always have your command prompt to select to do special attacks or magic that you would have had in the original game, but in between that, you're not just standing still waiting for the enemy to take your turn. You're still absolutely hammering into them with your other abilities, switching between your other characters. It is absolutely remarkable that no one has done this before, because it seems like an almost perfect harmony of the two battle systems, you know? And I honestly think that it works superb. It took a wee bit of getting used to, because it is, to me certainly, completely brand new. So it did take a wee bit of getting used to, but now that I feel as if I can kind of get into a rhythm with it and get into a flow with it and what I should be doing at what times, it is just absolutely great. I absolutely love it.
Amazing. I did wonder, to be honest, if that battle system was going to be quite difficult to get a grip of. I didn't feel too worried about it while playing the demo, but something about that experience has just like sat in the back of my mind ever since. So it's good to know that you feel like it's a success, because that is the thing that's worried me most about that game.
That's interesting, because that's That's probably the thing that worried me least about the game, because it can get quite anime at moments, we will say. Which was my problem with it. Obviously, when you're just reading the text, it's quite different to how it might translate when it's spoken, and in a particularly very Japanese style as well, which is certainly not some people's cup of tea. So that was my problem with it. And it does have moments of incredible anime-ness, but so far from what I've seen, and again, I am relatively short into the game, it seems to be doing a great job of what it's trying to do, man. It really does. It's something pretty special here, I think, that we've got.
Good stuff. And have you seen any of the kind of expansions on the original so far, or is it still fairly kind of one-to-one at the moment?
Sort of. I don't really want to say too much about that. I really don't want to talk about the specifics of the story at all. I would never want to spoil this game for anyone. But for now, sticking fairly straight to what happened in the original game. It does change slightly here and there, and I mean, you can see that things are happening slightly differently, but you do seem to be going and hitting all the same beats as the original, which is really good. It's just being told in a fresher, more 21st century way, I suppose, you know? Yeah, it's great, and I'm really, really enjoying it, and it really is hitting the heartstrings on the nostalgia front as well.
Nice,
it's super is, and I think that a lot of people who loved Final Fantasy VII, or even loved any of the old Final Fantasy games, will think, yeah, this one, they've done it right, you know. Because I mean, I know that a lot of people weren't massive fans of 15, and then some of the other ones before that, 13, 2 and 3 and whatever, maybe didn't land as well as they might have hoped that they would have done. Even back to Final Fantasy 14 Online as well. I mean, when that launched, it was an absolute car crash, you know, which has since rebranded itself and done very well, and then
turned itself around
turned itself around in a big way, of course. But this one really has landed, or for me anyway, it has definitely landed. Are you still excited to play it? Are you still going to pick it up, do you think?
I am, yeah. I'm definitely going to play it. I wonder from there how I'll feel. Basically, playing the demo, I enjoyed it. I was, fairly excited for it. I am really excited to see the changes that they've made to the base game, how they've interpreted different aspects of it, how they visually and kind of sonically present that to us, and everything that I've read and heard about it is all really positive. So I'm presuming that I'm also going to love it, but some of the things that you highlighted there as being concerns to you before playing it are definitely concerns for me, just generally in terms of my taste. And so there's maybe a few areas there that I would be less confident about, but I can't wait to see it. I can't wait to boot it up and play it and just see how I feel about it. And if I don't love it at that point, I'll maybe quite happily walk away from it. But good to know that you're enjoying it so far as a big fan. Yeah, and one thing I will just end on as well, you said both visually and sonically there. It is visually absolutely stunning. I think that it looks gorgeous. It looks so fucking good. And sonically, it has one of the best soundtracks I've heard in a game for a very, very long time. It is all the old Final Fantasy VII music, which was amazing anyway, and then just recreated, given the same love and attention as the recreation of the game itself, the visuals in the game. They've also recreated this music in a completely modern way, and it is so fucking good. It is so good. Nice.
I love it. All right, Liz, time for the news. All right, and news item number 1. Sony plans to limit the PS5 output in the first year. This according to a Bloomberg article. According to people involved in the supply chain, 5 to 6 million PS5 units will be made in the first fiscal year. Over the same period, however, they sold 7.5 million PS4 units. Bloomberg seems to speculate that this could be due to the, quotes, loftier price tag of the PS5 compared to the PS4. And apparently they've spoken to devs who have said that they expect the price to be between $500 and $550. Bloomberg also claimed in February that the price was being pushed up by scarce and pricey components. However, they've also quoted an analyst from Macquarie Capital, Damien Thong, who says, I think both the PS5 and the Xbox Series X may end up at $450 even though they would lose money at that price. Later in the article, Bloomberg have also said that they could very well sell this at a loss. The article also claims that the COVID-19 pandemic has affected Sony's promotional plans for the PS5, but has not affected the production process of actually making the units, so to speak. And it has added that unless the Xbox Series X is delayed, there would definitely be no delay to the PS5. These two consoles will be launching concurrently. That surprises no one. And they've also quoted Jim Ryan as saying that the PS5 would be rolled out worldwide all at the same time. There wouldn't be any sort of staggered launch or anything like that. So, Liz, what do you make of that?
It seems to confirm a lot of what we and others suspect about what Sony's doing. These sort of rumours and suggestions and debates about what the price point is going to be have been rumbling on for a long time now, but I think like this article seems to suggest we're basically looking at a $500 console, there or thereabouts, and one that will be slightly harder to get than previous generations, basically, which may well balance out based on the idea that slightly less people will have the money to pay for it or will want to spend the money, particularly as things are right now.
Well, I think that's it for me, man, to be honest with you. Like, I don't think that this console will be any harder to get than the PS4 in reality. That sold out at launch as well, you know? I just don't think that Sony anticipate that they are going to sell as many consoles out of the gate as they did last time. And I would be very surprised if it weren't the same situation with Xbox as well, you know?
So, but are you saying then that if there was no pandemic right now, that they would still only expect to sell 5 million, or would you expect that number to be higher?
I think that both Xbox and PlayStation are probably anticipating a closer race this time round than happened last time round.
Yep.
Where in reality, Xbox stumbled and fell pretty badly and Sony capitalised massively. And that's why you're getting that colossal number of 7.5 million, is because in the beginning, nobody wanted an Xbox and those PlayStation sales just absolutely flew through the roof.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? So coming down from 7.5 million to like 5 or 6 million, I don't really think that that's as big a deal as people are making it out to be. I think if through their first 2 quarters they sell 6 million consoles, although that is less than the PS4, that to me would be a massive win.
Oh, absolutely.
I think that would be a colossal one, and I think that they're expecting it to be a closer race with Xbox. There are a lot of unknown economic factors happening in the world right now, obviously. There's been an absolutely colossal amount of people out of work. Economies are absolutely in the tank across the world. People might simply have less disposable income this time around.
Yeah.
So that is 100% a factor. However, I don't disagree with the Bloomberg article in the actual price. Like, if this price tag starts with a 5, then I think that will put a lot of people off immediately. I think that both of these consoles will be desperately trying to get a $499 price tag on this. And if anyone can go below that, they're probably won, quite frankly. But I think that they will both be trying to get it to $499 so that they don't have to say it's $500 and something dollars, you know what I mean? Psychologically, that helps everyone out, you know?
Absolutely. It's a given within marketing that you wouldn't put the 500 on it if you can
go
exactly.
You know? There we go. So yeah, I mean, I do think that there are extreme circumstances happening just now that might mean that both sell even less, but I think that both of them right now probably think that they won't be selling quite as many out the gate, at least, as they might have done maybe last generation, you know? To me, this doesn't seem like a big deal, to be honest, at all. I don't think that only having 5 or 6 million consoles is going to mean that there would be, although this might sound a bit counterintuitive, right? But I don't really think that to us, in reality, this will manifest itself as a significantly more difficult console to get than the PS4. I think it will, to everyone, look basically the same.
Yeah, maybe. I think that might be a bit of a struggle. But you've got to look at it, fair enough, the PS4 sold 7.5 million and maybe it wasn't too difficult to get a hold of. That was coming off of the back of Sony's worst console, essentially. This one's coming off of the back of, you know, one of its best, if not its best console ever. There's over 100 million PS4s in the wild at the moment. There's a lot of people who maybe would never have considered buying a console at launch before who have been onboarded by the PS4 and will look to pick it up. So I agree. Like, I think your take there about the competition between the two is a really kind of salient point, because the success of the Xbox is surely going to be more of a success than the Xbox One was at launch, and so that will eat into what Sony can sell. Absolutely. And so, you know, that might bring the numbers down anyway. But I do wonder whether for, you know, your typical gamer who maybe doesn't want to buy it day one in November, say, when it launches, but is trying to buy one in February, March, or is trying to get one in time for Christmas, they might struggle to do that, you know. So there might be a bit of planning, a bit of forethought put in there, particularly for people who are a bit more financially hurt at the moment than they would have been or would expect to be, you know.
Absolutely. Like, I totally agree with that point, but I just don't know if on the run up to Christmas will we see it as actually any more scarce than it was the Christmas when the PS4 launched, because it was scarce then. Do you know what I mean? So
that'll be interesting. It's hard,
it will be interesting, but honestly I don't really see this as a big deal. Like, I really don't. I think that if PlayStation sell 5 or 6 million units in the first 2 quarters, they will be over the fucking moon, quite frankly, and probably in reality well in the lead.
One other thing from the article I wanted to just bring up really really quickly was a suggestion that Sony's strategy will basically be to try and get more people, or as many people as possible, into the PS4 ecosystem, and particularly using the network services there, and PlayStation Now and PS Plus, I guess, particularly. Do you think that's a good strategy when Xbox's offer in that regard is probably better than PlayStation's right now?
Yeah, I understand that. I think that Xbox's tactics, so to speak, and it being very, very easy to get involved with Games Pass just now, has meant that PlayStation have probably felt that they had to do something. But in reality, I still think that their situation is that they don't really need to do that, and Xbox do need to do that. This is obviously all speculation by Bloomberg as well. This isn't PlayStation coming out and saying that they're doing that. But I mean, ultimately they will, because all consoles in the lead up to the new console get absolutely slashed in price just to get any
remaining stock gone.
Any remaining stock left as well, like from a practical perspective, but also to get just any remaining gamers that would want to be on this system, maybe a year or two down the line, or maybe they're thinking about a PS5. In terms of the offering from Xbox in that regard and the offering from PlayStation in that regard, is that I think that one is done out of a need and one is done out of probably just getting rid of their stock, to be completely honest with you. The reality is right now is that PlayStation just don't need to do that. All right, and news item number 2. Gamescom has officially been cancelled, although, let's face it, the writing was on the wall for a long, long time. Gamescom have made this statement on Twitter.
It's official. Unfortunately, Gamescom will under no circumstances take place on-site in Cologne this year. Just like many of you, we are disappointed because, as the Gamescom team, we've been working on a wonderful Gamescom 2020 for months, just like the many exhibitors. However, it is also quite clear to us that, in the face of the corona pandemic, we must stand united. This means that we must all be considerate of each other and reduce the risk of infection. We are, however, already working at full speed on a digital Gamescom. It is, after all, the world's biggest event for games, and that's what it should be again this year. You can already look forward to how we will celebrate the best games and Gamescom together with you and millions of gamers worldwide at the end of August, even if it will only be digital and not on location this time. Because one thing is certain, this year too, Gamescom is and will remain the heart of gaming. We will reveal more about this in the next few weeks. Until then, stay healthy and don't forget to stay home and play together, your Gamescom team.
Yeah, so Gamescom have now completely pivoted to a digital experience, basically. Unlike E3, who just gave up the ghost altogether. In a lot of ways, I think that this speaks to E3 quite a lot. And I don't know, I want to say ineptitude, but that seems very harsh. But at the same time, I find it remarkable that Gamescom was so easily able to pivot to this digital experience, whereas E3 and the ESA just didn't bother doing anything. And I just don't understand it. And I think that this is a real opportunity for Gamescom to show off and just be like, no, we are, as they say, the heart of gaming. We are the biggest thing happening in the world, not E3. And E3 is, in recent years certainly, and particularly this year, waning in popularity quite a bit. So I don't know, I think it's there for the taking in terms of claiming yourself as the place to be for video game announcements, and I think the Gamescom's doing all the right things, quite frankly.
Yeah, absolutely. They were so quick off the bat to talk about going all digital. Their hand in terms of the on-site version of Gamescom was forced by the German government. So yeah, they've done exactly what you've said, and they've just gone, okay, we can do this digitally. I mean, the one thing that they have over the ESA is that they were already planning a digital event that's further away. They've got slightly more time, but
this is all true.
I totally agree. It did seem like the ESA. I'm not convinced that everyone should just go digital straight away, but given that the ESA are responsible for video gaming, which has a huge digital component, I do feel like they could have tried slightly harder to come up with something. Even if that then didn't work, they could then say, like, this just doesn't fit with our plans this year, we can't deliver it. Fair enough, but they just didn't do anything.
It did seem as if they gave up pretty easily. In all fairness, I don't think that is a shocking statement to anyone. But anyway, I think what Gamescom is doing great. I hope that it's kind of free and streamed and live for everyone, or at least you can catch up on it pretty quickly if it's not, because I'll definitely be getting involved in whatever they're doing. Definitely. I just also wanted to acknowledge as well that Indie Mega Booth has ceased operations over the pandemic at the very least. For those of you that don't know, the Indie Mega Booth was a travelling showcase that had booths at like a lot of top gaming shows, and particularly they were associated with the PAX shows in America, and they were a big part of what made those shows what they were. If you ask a lot of people in the industry, particularly on the American side, say that they love PAX, and PAX is one of their favourite gaming conferences to go and see, and I think that the Indie Mega Booth is a huge part of why that is, and it just gave, as you might suspect, a huge platform to indie games and indie devs. Founder Kelly Wallach made this statement over on their website.
I wanted to share with you all some news about Indie Megabooth. Due to the circumstances around COVID-19 and the cancellation of many in-person events and the high level of uncertainty, we're planning to sunset IMB for the duration of the pandemic. After 9 years of working on and building the IMB, it was a difficult and disappointing decision to make. Realistically, though, we're a very small team and this situation is bigger than us. Our primary focus right now is to stay healthy and safe through the COVID-19 situation as it's unfolding. The IMB team will stay on for this month to give a bit of a softer landing and to help support the Steam sale we've been organising for early May, which we're now affectionately calling the Going Away for Now sale. My hope is that the Steam sale will provide an opportunity for you all to discover some great games and to create an opportunity for folks to pitch in and say thanks. The developers participating will do a pay what you want revenue share at the end, and we've set up a PayPal link for anyone who just wants to contribute to IMB directly. The proceeds will be used to wrap up our financial obligations, set aside some money for our maintenance, and help support the transition. Think of it as a thank you for our work in the past and to help us land on our feet. And the statement just basically goes on to reiterate some of that and ask to support that Steam sale, which is coming in the start of May, 2nd of May, I think it starts.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this is a very sad casualty of the coronavirus, effectively, and the first kind of notable one that I've seen to like close down completely effectively. So this is it. I mean, your Gamescoms, your ESAs, your E3s will live to fight another day, do you know what I mean? But your indie mega booths might not. And although they're saying goodbye for now, in reality, they might not get off their feet again. Or it certainly might not be what it once was.
Yeah.
And that's sad. It's sad, man. I mean, the games that have come out of there include like Hyper Light Drifter, Dead Cells come out of there, Octodad, Outlast, the Hotline Miami games, that sort of thing that was showcased at these indie megabooth sections of huge conferences. And I mean, would Dead Cells have been the game that it was? Would it have got the notoriety that it got if journalists hadn't got the opportunity to see them at places like PAX, you know? But it's a sad platform to lose. It really is. All right, news item number 3. It seems that there has been a huge cultural change at Rockstar Games, and this is from Jason Schreier over at Kotaku. 18 months after an investigation by Kotaku reported that the working conditions at Rockstar really were not good, particularly in terms of crunch. There was reports that employees were regularly working 55 to 60-hour working weeks. And co-founder Dan Houser, who subsequently left Rockstar, has also said that he himself worked 100-hour weeks, which is just absolutely crazy. Beyond that, they seem to have had a kind of frat boy, as the article puts it, culture around Rockstar, which is a systemic problem that I think a lot of development studios just have. Back in the day, they were all just boys' clubs, effectively, weren't they? Yeah, but the article is like actually a really, really positive article. We'll put links in the show notes over at PlayersToo.com. It does talk about real change and a sort of changing of the guard at Rockstar. Specifically, I've already mentioned Dan Houser, one of the founders, has left. Leslie Benzies, one of the other founders, had already left after GTA 5. And Geronimo Barrera, who was actually also accused of sexual assault, but I don't really know what's come of that. He has also left as well, and he was a very high up executive there as well. So there's a large shift here happening, it seems. And Jason Schreier also has multiple testimonials saying that things have improved at Rockstar. One in particular that I like said, it's like there's an operation to get rid of the bad eggs. There's still bad eggs around, don't get me wrong, but it feels as though their days are numbered, which I just thought was like good. That's exactly what you need. If there's quotes bad eggs in there, that's what needs to go, and just get rid of them, you know. I'll always like take a particular interest in Rockstar as well, because Rockstar North is based in Scotland and is one of the biggest gaming studios in the world, and it's not really in reality very far from where me and Lewis are just now, an hour or so on the train.
pretty much, yeah. It's like right in the heart of Edinburgh, I think their office is now, yeah.
But the article was really positive, and it was a real sign of like hope that someone the size of Rockstar can, or more at the point, is willing to change for the better. I thought it was a great article and made it all the nicer, I thought, because that article was in fact Jason Schreier's last article at Kotaku, which in itself is mad because he is certainly one of the biggest and most well-known gaming journalists in the game, if not the best and the most well-known. But talking about the article, talking about Rockstar first, what do you think of that?
I think it's really good. As you said there, like for a company of the size of Rockstar and with the kind of culture that it was reported to have, and we've seen plenty of other games companies really resist change.
Yeah, and certainly this is not a specific Rockstar problem either. This is very much industry problem, sadly.
But like for Rockstar to be making significant steps and for, as you highlighted, like the fact that the staff are seeing that, it's not just that one or two people have been moved on or quietly pushed out the door and things feel the same and no one really knows what's going on. It's the fact that the people on the ground are seeing actual significant change. I think one of the things it mentioned as well was that QA testers at Rockstar Lincoln down in England, they've been put onto proper contracts and they're getting paid overtime for their work, which was one of the huge issues before. So I mean, this is
particularly in times like these, man.
Totally, exactly that. And it's so easy to put the boot into big companies like this for getting things wrong, and it's really important that people talk about it when they are doing things better. And obviously, there's still miles to go. They themselves said there's still some bad eggs, and they have to be seen to. I think the biggest question out of all of this is how does all of this feel when they're actually properly developing a game, which they're not really at the moment.
Rumour has it they're full throttle in GTA 6.
Well, Rumour does have it, but it's the tail end of that cycle when we'll see how deeply these cultural changes have happened.
No, that is true. I mean, if all of this is all very well and good for just now, but when it does come to actual quotes crunch time, then is it just all the same again? Time will tell certainly, but good news in the short term anyway.
Definitely.
I did want to mention Jason Schreier leaving Kotaku very briefly as well, because as I was saying, he's quite a big deal in the video games industry and pretty much at the pinnacle of journalism in the video games industry, particularly stuff like this, like real investigative journalism into these companies and producing work that holds them accountable, and can really enforce change in the industry. And he's done that quite a lot. You know what I mean? He was one of the first ones to have like one of the big scoops on what the hell went wrong with Anthem and things like that, just kind of more recently. And then he's always worked very passionately about unionization in the video games industry and on the culture of crunch that just is generally around
so
the
labour
video
conditions
games.
And that sort of thing.
Labour conditions, exactly. And honestly, I think his work's been great. We have every week nearly got a Jason Schreier article in the news or a shout out or something. Do you know what I mean? Often when I'm trying to put together the news, I'm thinking, I wonder if Jason Schreier has an article about this subject. And he is one of the few names that I think a lot of people would know.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he's polarising for people as well.
Hugely polarising. But for me, genuinely, like one of the good guys. He is going to continue to work in video games. He'll be now working at Bloomberg. I actually watched an interview with him and Greg Miller of Kind of Funny, and he seems like quite genuinely excited about it. He seems as though he will be able to continue to do this kind of work. He seems as though he will have the resources to maybe do more of the stuff that he wants to be doing. And fair play to the guy, because the whole situation around Gawker and Go Media and Deadspin, Go Media are kind of the media group that own Kotaku, was just an absolute car crash. And if you don't know the ins and outs of that, you can go and Google it yourself. We don't have time to go into it all here because, good Lord, that could be a podcast in itself. But just incredible work. I'm glad the guy keeps going, and it just shows you if you treat your employees like shit, they will move on from you. Do you know what I mean? You're not bigger than the sum of your parts. Do you know what I mean? A company like Go Media is the people that they employ, and that is a huge miss for Kotaku, no doubt.
Definitely.
Alright, and news item number 4. Facebook have launched a video game streaming app to rival Twitch. Now, where have we heard that before, eh? It's literally called Facebook Gaming, which is what it was always called. I was kind of expecting a bit of a rebrand coming along with this, but nope, still called Facebook Gaming. And is Facebook's arguably most serious attempt to get involved in the video game space. However, in terms of watch time on streams, they are actually third behind, Twitch obviously, who has the market cornered essentially. After that is YouTube, then there is quite a considerable drop down to Facebook. The release date of that was actually pulled forward due to the demand on people want to watch streams basically because everyone's stuck indoors and doesn't have anything better to do. So they tried to get this app out quickly. I know you can quite cynically see that being them using the coronavirus to better promote their product. I know who would have thought it of Facebook, but I don't know. I'm choosing not to be overly cynical about this, and anything that keeps anyone indoors rather than wanting to go outside, fine. I'll take it. Facebook had actually recently been signing exclusive streaming rights for for some top streamers here and there. Nothing really came of that in the same way that it became quite a big deal for Mixer, who got Ninja, and I think laterally Shroud as well, two of whom were like the biggest streamers in the world at the time. And also interestingly, that despite being third ahead of Mixer, Facebook rarely seemed to be part of this conversation. You know what I mean? When we're talking about streaming live games, Let's Plays and what have you, the conversation is usually Twitch, YouTube and Mixer. Facebook we don't even usually name, you know, because they just don't feel like a player in this way. I don't know, what do you think about this?
I suspect that's maybe why they've gone down the route of like a standalone app, because up till now it's just felt like something that's in Facebook and it's not somewhere that you go specifically for that. Even if that is what you're doing, it's just like, oh, I'm on Facebook and that's what I'm always doing. But to kind of seek out something like Twitch or Mixer, that's a kind of a concerted effort to do that. I can't see that it's going to change anything all that much, to be totally honest.
Do you know what I think's nice about Twitch and Mixer? Is that it's not like you're going on to Amazon to go and watch all your gaming videos. Do you know what I mean? No, you're going on to Twitch. And I know that Twitch existed separately to Amazon for a while before they were bought, which obviously helped them out that way. But the same thing has been done by Xbox as well. Like they've not went and called this Xbox streaming or something like that. They've called it Mixer. They've called it its own thing, and it's standalone and it's separate to all the Xbox stuff. It's tied to all that, but it kind of lives separately. Whereas Facebook gaming just makes it seem as if it's an extension of Facebook, like what you're saying, and that it's something that you access through Facebook. And I don't know, that just doesn't seem like a very popular thing to be doing. And I think more people are trying to get away from Facebook rather than trying to buy into it, you know?
What I was going to add to that, it's just like so many people have issues with Facebook for all sorts of totally valid reasons. And so I can't see that this is going to draw a lot of people to suddenly be like, I'm going to start streaming on Facebook gaming, when it's just as easy to stream anywhere else and maybe more fun, as you're kind of saying.
In reality, the second biggest contender here by quite a distance is YouTube. And I think that just in terms of ease as a place where you would want to watch someone stream in videos, you know what I mean? YouTube is just so much more that environment. Yeah, I would be very surprised if they even came close to being second, to be honest with you. And I wouldn't even be shocked that Mixer overtook them in the coming years either at all. Not at all. Particularly going into the next generation, where I think that Xbox are really going to integrate Mixer quite heavily into their next system, you know? Alright, finishing off as we always do with a couple of shout outs. First up, and speaking of Xbox, they have announced a new limited edition Cyberpunk Xbox Series X, which will be released in June, despite the fact that the game doesn't come out until September, which is slightly odd in and of itself. Lewis, you've seen all the pictures of it. Thoughts?
I think this is one of the ugliest consoles that I've seen in some time.
That is harsh. That is harsh, man.
I mean, it's absolutely about personal preference. There's elements of it that I think are kind of nice. I do think if you took out the controller on a lot of these images and asked someone what this is, I don't think that they would necessarily say an Xbox or even a games console. You know, it looks a bit like a shoddily put together PC, which I guess is kind of what it's trying to do.
Yeah, that's the aesthetic, right? It's steampunk.
Well, that's why I go back to saying like that's partly about personal taste. I'm not really that into the kind of cyberpunk aesthetic, if I'm totally honest. The thing though that bothers me about all of these, you know, the peripherals and the accessories, is that it's kind of fine. See the side of the console that's like yellow and blue, fine with that. It's the fact that it has no future written all over it that just feels so corny and so video games that I would not be seen dead with it. And if they just made something that looked a bit kind of cyberpunky and left it at that, I think it would have been okay.
I must admit, I do agree with you largely on the no future stuff. I don't like the controller, I will say as well. I just don't. But I don't mind the console. I'm going to say it. I'm going to put it out there. Don't mind the console. It says no future on the bottom, by the way, so you'll only ever see that if it's standing up. Okay. So if you're lying it flat, you'll be fine.
Okay. I'll retract like the worst looking console I've seen in some time, but it's not amazing.
It's I'm not claiming it's great. I mean, I have an odd relationship with limited edition consoles. I think the only one that I saw that I wanted with any real gusto was the Spider-Man one, the Spider-Man PS4 Pro, which I thought looked incredible. Yeah. But apart from that, I'm just kind of like, right, whatever. It's just an opportunity to sell someone a slightly fancy console, you know what I mean, for probably more money than you could get a usual Xbox Series X. What do you think about it coming out 3 months before the game?
Well, pretty strange, particularly given that the controller I think is more or less already out, right? So it's coming in these weird staggered offerings. I guess the thing is that the game is supposed to be out by now.
Well, it is. But it isn't. Do you know what I mean?
But I wonder to what extent these things were already, going through the manufacturing process.
Nonetheless, I think that if we weren't transitioning into a new generation when that game was coming out, then I think that this would have been delayed to be coming out concurrently with the game, hadn't it clashing with their new console,
Yeah, more or less. Like they want to move these units in the summer. Going back to the Sony conversation we had at the start of the show, they want to move these units in the summer, get them gone, and then have people start to look at the Xbox One X later in the year.
All right, news item number 2. Well, this one a bit of a PSA more than anything, to be completely honest with you, but Switch users have been reporting a high number of unauthorized account access attempts. This was reported by Eurogamer originally. It seems that Nintendo users are being emailed by Nintendo themselves saying that their accounts have been accessed. These are legitimate, but more worryingly, it seems that if you have had your account accessed legally, then if you have a PayPal account linked to that, then it can be used to buy things like Fortnite V-Bucks, which was one of the examples in the article. I don't know, Nintendo seem to have been quite quiet about this, to be completely honest with you, but this very much seems as though there has been some sort of security breach here. Nintendo are investigating, and they recommend that you enable two-step verification on your Switch, and I would 100% echo that, and I would also say change your password as well. So enable two-step verification on your Switch and change your password. Me and Lewis have both already done it. Yes?
Absolutely, yeah. Be safe. Don't let your Switch account, your Nintendo account, be hijacked for Fortnite V-Bucks. Certainly not.
Exactly. I take cybersecurity very seriously, and that's not a joke. I have whole sorts of password managers and everything, all here, there, and everywhere. This is important stuff. Two-factor authentication is a big deal, and you should definitely be enabling it anywhere that you can. Alright, shout out number 3. Death Stranding, speaking of Death Stranding, has been delayed on PC. Kojima Productions has made this statement.
Following the temporary closure of Kojima Productions, we've had to delay the PC launch of Death Stranding to July 14th, 2020, to allow more development time amidst the current work-from-home orders in place. Thank you all for your patience and continued support.
To be honest with you, PC gamers out there, I would count my lucky stars that it's only a month, because obviously the PC releases are no longer tied to physical releases, and I think if this were tied to a physical release, you would be looking at a substantially longer delay. So I would count your lucky stars that it's only a month. It's not that big a deal to wait a month, particularly if it means that everyone at Kojima Productions is working safely during the lockdown. So not a huge deal. Thought we should mention it anyway, but yeah, you'll be getting Death Stranding on your PC soon enough, where I'm sure it'll look glorious. Alright, and final shout out number 4. Sony has patented a robot gaming companion that reacts to your emotions as you play. I'll just let that sink in for everyone. The robot would be autonomous to the point that it may decide and come up and sit beside you of its own accord. It will have a feeling deduction unit, which will be able to evaluate feelings indexes such as joy, anger, love, and surprise. And it will be compatible with biological sensors that track your heart rate and sweat state. Now, if you remember a couple of weeks ago when we spoke about a patent for a PlayStation controller that had biofeedback, this is sounding awfully familiar. And as if all of that wasn't creepy enough, Lewis, could you just read the paragraph from the IGN article that we're pulling this from? All the articles we use, as always, over at PlayersToo.com.
Sure, Mark. So it reads, the patent explains that the robot has a love index, which will be affected by how the user speaks to the robot in moments of tension. When asked to be charged, if the player doesn't charge the robot quickly, it will evaluate that the player does not love it and will react in a similar fashion if it's kicked around instead of being stroked, or if the user tells the robot that it's being noisy. If it feels unpopular, it will no longer empathise with the player during gameplay, a conscious action made to make the user reflect on their attitude and treat the robot more kindly in future. It can also help to improve life rhythm and will tell users to go to bed.
Visually, this thing also looks like a kid's drawing of a cloud with arms and legs and a face drawn on it, right? I mean, this is some Black Mirror level shit, this, isn't it? This is wild.
I don't know, it's finally a pal for you to play video games with, Mark.
Aye, very good, very good. I've got you, you're enough trouble.
Yeah, fair enough. This is completely fucking bizarre stuff from Sony, isn't it? Let's be totally frank.
Yes, it is absolutely, utterly bizarre, slightly terrifying, and I want no part of it. Quite frankly, I just thought it was a fun news story to end off the week list.
If you haven't seen anything about this, go and check it out. It's a very, very strange thing.
We will post links to the patent and the images of the weird little robot man on PlayersToo.com. But with that, I definitely need a beer, and then we'll be back with topic of the week. And we are back with Topic of the Week. Topic of the Week this week is gaming journalism in 2020. Now, this is, of course, off the back of Jason Schreier, one of the biggest names in video games journalism, moving on from Kotaku to Bloomberg, which in itself is interesting, I think, to move from what is a traditionally video games focused or kind of nerd culture focused website to a much more traditional media outlet, to, if you like. I mean, Bloomberg's huge, of course. But in general, I just think that video game journalism has a bad rap among gamers, and I think that this kind of stems from Jeff Gerstmann being sacked from GameSpot because he wrote a bad review was, I think, one of the first real times everyone sat up and noted, well, that's obviously not on.
Yeah.
And then there was the whole Gamergate thing, which was just an absolute car crash of very many things, most of which seem to be thinly veiled attacks on women under the guise of better games journalism, but with massive air quotes there. At the same time, nonetheless, it's been brought into disrepute, we will say, among gamers on multiple occasions. I just don't feel as if gamers have a really great understanding of what journalism in general should be doing and what sometimes we call gaming journalism or journalism in general really sort of isn't.
Absolutely, yeah. There's an interesting crossover there between what games journalism is or can be and what other forms of journalism are. So, yeah, I think I totally agree with your opening sentiment there that it's a misunderstood thing or often a maligned thing within gaming circles. And I think that does come back often for a lot of people to be about their trust in how people review things or how features or previews and stuff are all secured. And really, I think someone like Jason Schreier shows us that video games journalism can and should be, particularly now, so much bigger than that, so much more than just related to specific games and people's opinions of them, you know?
Absolutely. See, one of my sentiments coming into this discussion is that I feel like video games journalism in very recent years in reality has grown up, has taken a step forward. Suddenly we are talking about unionisation and inequality and diversity and labour rights and things like that, and that is just discussions that 15 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago maybe, we weren't really having at all. You know what I mean? And I think that is journalism finally doing within games what it should be doing. And what journalism in any medium, I think, should be doing is that they should be informing the public on things that are of their interest or things that they need to know and holding the powers that be accountable to that public. That is what journalism should be doing on any front, whether it's a political correspondent holding the government accountable for their actions, or whether it's Jason Schreier holding Rockstar accountable for their actions when they treat their staff poorly and they overwork people and they have bad work environments for people involved. And seeing a response from Rockstar just shows that works. I'm sure that they weren't intentionally treating their staff badly, but it probably wasn't something that they even necessarily thought was an issue until it was brought to their attention that this is actually a huge issue. Do you know what I mean? And that is something that gaming journalism can do, or journalism in general can do, but specifically to video games, that is just such a great example of the power that it can have and to hold these huge companies accountable. You know, for me, the most important thing that they can do.
The thing there that you say, the fact that these are huge companies, I think that's where the interesting division is, because you don't get a lot of journalism like this necessarily around other art forms, you know? You don't get a lot of big exposés on film making companies, you know, unless it's something like the Harvey Weinstein case. But the thing here is that video games are a colossal business which involve countless thousands of workers all around the world, and that means that there's absolutely got to be stories to tell about the situations that they find themselves in, forgetting about the purpose of journalism around the game as product itself, you know?
So it's more stories about the industry rather than the products being video games.
Exactly, yeah. And I think that's one of the things Jason Schreier himself, and I'm sure he has said it, and I'm sure other journalists will feel the same thing, is that, you know, it's his responsibility to inform and, like you said, hold people's feet to the fire a bit and to entertain, and there's almost two slipstreams there of what games journalism can be. Jason Schreier wrote countless hundreds of daft articles in his time, as plenty of other good games journalists have done, you know. There's still that entertainment side of it, but what they can do is bring critical perspective to how games are made and how they're consumed. And if you think about things like the loot box issue that we've all been kind of grappling with as gamers over the last few years, without journalists really shining a light on this stuff and giving people a place to come together and talk about it, whether that's the comment section, whether that's Reddit or whatever, but giving you the kind of locus of an article with all the information and to say, this is what's going on, what do you think of it? And that can change things, you know, that can really make a difference to the industry.
Absolutely, and I think that I don't just want to keep on going on about Jason Schreier just because, well, he's the main man, I suppose,
He's
isn't
the
he?
easily
And he's
nameable
moving on. It's just that name that you go to, isn't it? But I mean, he has affected real change in the industry, real change. Like, lives have changed for the better because of the things that Jason Schreier has wrote, which I think is remarkable. For some people, it might have got a lot worse because of what Jason Schreier has wrote, but I just hope that those are the people who ought to be working harder to keep their staff happy. Just talking about what people call journalism, because I'll often see, for example, like a review for a game someone really likes, okay? And say a big news, IGN, for example, just throwing it out there. IGN gave X game a bad review, and then there'll be a whole tirade in the comments about how gaming journalism is dead and none of this means anything and blah, blah, blah. And I just think... Well, I suppose I want to ask you this. I want to ask you this because you're much closer to the world of journalism than I certainly ever will be. So, do you consider a review gaming journalism?
Like, not really, not in the fullest kind of
I mean, I agree.
Word,
it's certainly not full throttle journalism.
No, it's criticism, and there's a difference there between criticism
exactly.
and journalism.
I mean, it's like
you know?
one is a hard-hitting piece of like investigative journalism, and the other is a man's opinion on a thing. That's not the same thing. Like, I think that. Or investigative journalism should just be laying the facts bare to a certain extent. Like, a review has to, by its nature, like, incorporate someone's opinion.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I just don't think that because people don't like the reviews by somewhere, that counts as gaming journalism. Like, I think we need to very clearly separate these things because they do not equate.
Yeah.
Like, so what, for example, like what Cecilia D'Anastasio did for the workers at Riot Games is incredible, is absolutely incredible. She's also subsequently left Kotaku, by the way, and is now Wired.
Yeah.
But her article on the working culture at Riot Games has fundamentally changed lives of everyone who worked at Riot Games, hopefully for the better. And I mean, and anyone whose toes got stepped on, hopefully they deserved it. Mm-hmm. That's what it is to be held accountable, and that's the power that proper, good games journalism can do. It can properly change what these massive companies with hundreds of employees are doing, and hopefully change that for the better.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've also got to take into account though what good games journalism does to gamers rather than just the companies themselves. I'm so struck by a lot of the reactions to the article about Rockstar's culture changing, where effective, you know, I saw a lot of tweets and a lot of Reddit posts which more or less boiled down to, yeah, but that's how you make good games. Crunch equals good games. And I really do wonder, you know, if the next GTA isn't as good as GTA 5, is that going to, you know, come back to bite a lot of this kind of journalism? But I think that is a really interesting part of this as well, is that people are so, in gaming more, again, so than a lot of other art forms, people are so connected to the thing that they love. It's this product, it's this console, it's this whatever it is. They absolutely believe in it. They go to bat for it. They will take no criticism of it. And so when a piece of games journalism comes out that says Riot are actually really terrible employers, or, you know...
Imagine how many League of Legends fans that upset, the amount of people that play League of Legends.
Exactly, and how
the
many...
The backlash must have been unbelievable.
And how many of them will have performed mental gymnastics to say that, you know, these things aren't bad and they're being blown out of proportion. And I wonder, you know, to what extent the stories like this hurt the more critical arm of Kotaku or of all of these other sites, you know, gamers that are really pissed off. I mean, even Jason Schreier's farewell article, it had the headline or the sub-headline, "Press sneak fuck out," because that's what people had been calling him. There's so much distrust there, and I wonder, like, how many people don't trust the reviews that people like Jason Schreier or Cecilia D'Anastasio are writing because of their perspective on the big stories that they're breaking. You know, it's such an ingrained, funny world, video gaming.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, well, by the same token, I suppose you have that with politics as well. I mean, you have news items that fight to bat for one side and then news outlets on the other side. It's more interesting to tie it to political reporting than to tie it to, say, music or film.
Yep.
Because often, well, particularly in American politics, you have one side. You know, I mean, for a lot of people, I know there's a whole bunch of swing voters in America. Like, I'm not trying to pin everyone in like that, but there are huge swathes of people that they vote Republican and they vote Democrat, and then you have that party in that colour and that represents you, as you just put very nicely, will do mental gymnastics to justify anything that is said by your party and make that good, and do mental gymnastics to justify anything that the other party says, and that's bad.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? I think that we're seeing a lot of that with the current president right now. I think that that's quite interesting, that you can so easily say that, well, instead of having Democrats and Republicans, we have PlayStation and Xbox. And you'll fight to the death over this and you'll fight to the death over that, and never the twain shall meet, you know? But in actual fact, it doesn't need to be this way, you know?
No, absolutely.
We can all just be reasonable. If I were a fan of Riot Games, for example, or better point, I am actually a fan of Rockstar Games. Do you know what I mean? And when I read about that, my immediate thought, and I don't know, maybe this is just me, like, but my immediate thought wasn't, oh, fuck him. And my thing was, oh, Rockstar, what are you doing?
Yeah, totally.
That to me is the correct response to this. You've created these absolutely incredible games. You're making money hand over fist like no one else. Christ almighty, treat your staff right. Treat the people who got you this money, who got you to this position correctly. Pay them right for the hours that they work if they do work overtime, and make sure that that overtime isn't absolutely killing the rest of their life, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
My immediate thought is, man, that's really sucks that Rockstar are one of the ones that are one of the bad guys, you know what I mean? Because I thought they were one of the good guys, you know? Me and you have always played PlayStation. We have allegiances to PlayStation. We have nostalgia for PlayStation that I don't really think can ever be undone. But if it suddenly emerged that, the new PlayStation 5 console's been made in a sweatshop by effectively slave workers, then I would have to seriously think, what the fuck are you doing, you bunch of idiots? And
I mean,
do you know what I mean? Like, but it's things like that. Like, why would you get annoyed that someone has reported something like that? Why would you get annoyed that someone is holding accountable these people who should be acting better? You know?
I mean, that's it. It's so easy in that scenario to blame the person saying the thing that you don't like rather than seriously interrogating the thing that is happening and why it might be happening and what that ought to mean for you. And that's, you know, like the Rockstar example I think is a perfect one, because most people who listen to this show, most people who are out there playing games will have encountered a Rockstar game at some point and they'll have decided whether or not it's for them, right? And if you are one of those people and you read the Rockstar story, the original one, the one about how terrible their company culture was, you might not have decided at that moment that you weren't going to play a Rockstar game again, but it should have made you think. It's not a challenge to you. The journalist or a journalist or an outlet is not challenging you to change your behaviour. It's presenting you with information with which you might decide to do so. I think that is a really important thing. That I think the comparison to politics is really interesting, because you don't see this in music journalism, you don't see it in film journalism. You know, most of those things, if you buy a film magazine, every article in that magazine is going to just be about films getting made, what's coming out, interviews and blah blah blah. Games journalism can really delve into what's happening in an industry, and that is for our benefit. And you might not ever make a decision differently. You might continue to buy the same things that you always did, but you know more about it. You understand what your choices are doing to people, and that might have an impact on you, you know?
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I think that, I mean, Rockstar are currently doing the right thing. You know what I mean? They're moving forward, and they're moving forward in the right direction. They've acknowledged that something had to be done, and hopefully they're doing something about it. And to all intents and purposes, right now it seems as though they are. Yeah, that is the power of journalism. That is what they can do when it's done right. This is what journalists should be doing. They should be activating change in the industry that they're in, and they should be hold people accountable to their actions, to their words, and inform the people, both when they've done it wrong, but also, as we've seen from the latest Jason Schreier article, also say when they've done it right, because I think that there is a lot of negativity around. I long ago have stopped listening to actual news broadcasts, and I know that kind of semi-upsets you, but because they are truly miserable all the time. You know what I mean? Just from start to finish, they are just absolute misery. So I actually think that it's really important as well for just the culture of video games and just our culture in general to report good things as well, and just not all the bad all the time. You know? That's why I really think that Jason Schreier's last article was really superb. That whole thing kind of came full circle for him just as he was leaving as well. It was quite poetic in its own way, I suppose. It gets a bad rap, as I said, and that's because I don't think that there are companies out there, or many companies out there, that are really willing to go out to bat for some of these things. Like, I couldn't imagine Cecilia D'Anastasio's article on IGN.
No, probably not.
I could not imagine that in a million years.
Yeah.
In reality, I couldn't really imagine it many other places other than Kotaku, which is quite sad to see her and Jason Schreier go, because they were both doing great work. Yeah. They are both going on to work at magazines and hopefully still work in video games, although I think Cecilia's a bit more tech focused now, and it's not just about the games. But Jason Schreier seems to be still sticking to video games, because it would be a real fucking tragedy if this industry lost people like that, because quite frankly there aren't enough of them.
Well, that's
and
it. Yeah.
there are two people doing really great work, and I think that more outlets, more platforms like your IGNs, your Polygons, Eurogamers, PC Gamers, all of that could be doing a much better job of actually going out and finding stories like this. And as you said, not just writing about the games as a product, but writing about the industry and the people in it.
Yeah, in a broader sense, yeah. I think that's really interesting to see the kinds of places that these people are going on to, that they are going to established news outlets that report on much broader things. Jason Schreier himself has sort of said that was the thing about Bloomberg that attracted him, was that editorial freedom within a bigger newsroom. So that's more understanding, that's more knowledge, it's more help. I think that it's a really interesting thing that we find ourselves in here, where games journalism might be graduating towards being part of serious news coverage in a much broader sense. But what does that then do to specific, dedicated game sites like Kotaku? IGN is not obviously in any danger anytime soon, but if there becomes a real divide there between sites and outlets which are basically just feeding you marketing content, trailers, press releases and that kind of thing, and then it's your actual newspapers, your broadsheet newspapers who are doing the serious work in terms of games journalism, that's a tricky position for gamers to find themselves in.
As well. Like, see, for example, so that article that Jason wrote or Cecilia would have wrote, that article, traditionally, if that article was going to come out at all, that article wouldn't have came out through an IGN or a Eurogamer or a Game Informer. That article would have came out through the mainstream news. Mm-hmm. So in a lot of ways, the two of them going to work for mainstream news outlets, I can see being very, very appealing to them.
Totally.
Because for me, I never ever went to Kotaku for reviews. I went to IGN for reviews, I went to Game Informer for reviews, I went to a Eurogamer for reviews, PC Gamer for reviews. I never really went to Kotaku for reviews. If there was something, for example, like, there's something happened at Rockstar, wonder what Jason's saying, you know what I mean, as I was saying earlier on, you know what I mean? So it is a different thing, you're right, and in some ways maybe I'm thinking in my head just literally just processing this. Maybe it would be better if there was just an outlet for that sort of gaming journalism, and then I think that IGNs and Polygons,
they all have their place.
They all have their place. Of course they do. I'm not saying that anyone doesn't, but it would be nice to have a place where, we are doing something quite different here, and we are challenging people, and we are actively trying to hold people accountable and make this industry a much better industry for the people working in it.
Yeah.
And I think that is what both of them done tremendously well at Kotaku. All right, and I think we'll leave it there. Thank you once again for letting us pontificate about the wondrous world of gaming journalism. I would like to remind everyone that you can find PlayersToo on all the social media. That's Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, the lot. You can also find our written content over at playerstoo.com. That's PLAYERSTOO.com. And if you could take 5 seconds to give us 5 stars wherever you get your podcasts, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Podchaser, wherever. Apple Podcasts helps us out massively. If you were going to do any of them, go there. And again, it only does take 5 seconds to give us that 5 stars. And I should have said at the top of the show, but thank you so much to anyone that gave us a review on Podchaser as well. Those reviews went to help fight coronavirus. So thumbs up to everyone. You're an absolute legend to us. I'd like to remind everyone that our play-along game for April is Telling Lies, Lewis, which I have now booted up once.
Oh, have you actually?
So there you go. There you go. Started. I'm ahead of you now.
Oh, nice. Very well done. Yeah. I'm kind of thinking I'll get to it this week, but possibly we'll wait until I've got a bit of time with Resident Evil 3 first.
Nice one, man. Definitely still looking forward to it. Very much looking forward to getting stuck into it. I'm kind of almost, I know I've just started Final Fantasy, but I'm feeling an indie game. I get right in the mood for an indie game occasionally, and this is one of them. And I think I'm up for this. I think I'm up for it. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we will see you next week.
Thanks.